Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to my Azerbaijan Grand Prix review. What a mixed bag of a race that was. Chaos at the start, a dip in the middle, and chaos again right at the end. It was also a race that threw up a few big talking points, which we will come to a little bit later, but because there's so much to cover, let's jump straight into it and take a look at the race winner, which for the first time in 2018 and for the first time since the US Grand Prix last year was Lewis Hamilton. A win which, by his own admission, was very lucky. I mean, he looked off the pace throughout the weekend versus the Ferraris, and he benefited massively from the failed overtake of Sebastian Vettel and the puncture for Valtteri Bottas. But as I said in the live stream yesterday, at the end of the day, you've got to be there to capitalise on that luck. And there's a few drivers in the field that got to the end of that Grand Prix that have to feel the same. But you could see by Hamilton's demeanour after the Grand Prix, he didn't look particularly happy about it. Obviously gutted for his teammate, and totally understandably. But personally, I almost feel at this point as though it looked like a Lewis Hamilton that has accepted that he's not the title favourite, he's not got the fastest car, and it's going to be a tough season. So it's going to be interesting from here on out. We've got Spain coming up. There will be upgrades to Mercedes, but probably to every car as well, that will pretty much end up cancelling each other out. But lucky or not, it is a win nevertheless. Let's have a look at the rest of the result. He led home Kimi Raikkonen 2.4 seconds ahead of the Ferrari. You'll see very close throughout the field because we had the late safety car. Sergio Perez, fantastic for him and brilliant for Force India. Their first podium of the year and his second in Baku. He got third, of course, back in 2016. Sebastian Vettel finished in P4 following his failed attempt of an overtake on Valtteri Bottas. At least he went for it though. He wasn't to know what was to happen a lap later, so absolutely had to send it, as Daniel Ricciardo would say. Carlos Sainz, brilliant for him. P5 for Renault. Charles Leclerc, though, P6 for Sauber. Yes, again, as we're going to say multiple times, he's got lucky, as did Perez, as did Sainz. But he totally deserves that sixth place, but I will talk a little bit more about him in just a moment. Fernando Alonso, another good recovery to P7. Again, just underlining how good the race pace is in that McLaren and what could he have achieved without that early damage. There was massive damage to the floor and diffuser of that McLaren. Lance Stroll, P8, we were talking about him during the live stream yesterday. Some were saying that they felt it was his best drive. I disagreed at the time, but having watched the race back this morning, I think that is his best drive in Formula One, even trumping what happened last year in Baku. Brilliant for him. And points on the board for William. Stoffel Van Dorn up to P9. Good recovery from him. Started well down, of course. And Brendan Hartley picking up his first point in Formula One and for Toro Rosso. Marcus Ericsson so close to his second points finish of the season. He was in P11. Again, that Sauber looked very good this weekend. Pierre Gasly in 12th and Kevin Magnussen in P13. And those two came together towards the end of the race, with Magnussen receiving a 10-second time penalty for what the stewards described as an unpredictable and unnecessary move by the Dane. And your retirements list in Baku: deep breath, Valtteri Bottas, Romain Grosjean, Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo, Nico Hülkenberg, Esteban Ocon, and Sergei Sirotkin. One thing before I move on, I want to clear up on Sirotkin. During yesterday's live stream, we'd seen the breaking news that he'd received a penalty, but we'd only seen the headline. We thought it was for the incident with the Renault and the McLaren, but it wasn't. He received the 3-place grid penalty for the incident running into turn 2 where he hit the back of Sergio Perez. So I just wanted to clear that up. However, in terms of race talking points, there is, quite frankly, only one place to start, and that is at Red Bull. I'm sure by now everybody's seen it or heard about it at least, but Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen collided, taking each other out of the Grand Prix in what was officially deemed a racing incident. There is the official release from the stewards, and you can see there that car 3, Daniel Ricciardo, has admitted that he left his move too late. They've also confirmed that Verstappen did move twice to defend, but they feel that was in a relatively minor manner, and came to the conclusion it was obvious to the stewards that although the incident had its origins in the moves by car 33, the driver of car 3 also contributed to the incident. It was an incident that really began for me back on lap 11. At that point, Max was struggling with his battery to get it charged up. Ricciardo was quite clearly quicker, and they ended up squabbling. It was clear at that point that that was always going to end in tears. The whole situation was never going to end positively. Everybody could see that. Quite how the team didn't see it, I will never know. They should have called team orders at that point, lap 11. Red Bull are saying, we don't do team orders, we let our drivers race, it's in our philosophy, and that's not entirely true. Go back to Malaysia a few years ago, Multi-21. That is a team order. And that was the second or third race of the season? So they have given team orders in the past and absolutely should have. But at the end of the day, this comes down to the drivers. I said yesterday in the live stream, I felt it was a racing incident. I watched it a few more times after the stream. I've watched it a couple of times again this morning, and I still feel it's not quite 50-50. I would maybe say 60-40 Verstappen because of the second move, but that's not enough to be throwing a penalty at anybody. That's not me defending Verstappen. If you go back to China, he got massively criticised by me for that move on Vettel. But looking at this, I don't think you should be jumping on the Verstappen bandwagon and saying, oh, he should be banned, he should be dropped, he should be getting penalties, because I don't think he's done enough wrong. Ricciardo's committed to that move. That door is always going to close. He sends the dummy to the right, Verstappen goes to move. Ricciardo very quickly switches back to the left, Verstappen moves slightly. Yes, it's a second move, completely, 100%. But at that point, you've also got Ricciardo right behind Verstappen. He loses that downforce, so he's always going to lock up. He's never going to make the corner. It was inevitable that that was going to be a crash at that point. The whole incident had been boiling up all race. They'd already had contact at least once, and it was just completely unnecessary. They didn't need to be doing that. Aside from anything else, they were costing each other so much time and compromising the team's race. Yes, we want to see drivers racing. I hate team orders. Everyone knows I can't stand them. But in these kinds of situations, it makes sense. They weren't going to win the Grand Prix. They didn't have the race pace we all thought they had on Friday. So they have to think of the bigger picture, particularly this early in the season. And when you look back at Bahrain with the double DNF and the points they lost there, the rules do clearly state that more than one change of direction is not permitted. In fact, the official line says, more than one change of direction to defend a position is not permitted. If a driver has moved off the racing line while defending their position, they may move back, but must ensure there is at least one car's width between their own car and the edge of the track. The edge of the track defined by the white line. So there wasn't. So Max Verstappen is in the wrong there. However, like I said, Daniel Ricciardo, massively aggressive. He's even said so himself. He's accepted his part of the blame. And because of that, the next line that I'm going to read is also very important. And this comes from the stewards as well. Unless it is clear to the stewards that a driver was wholly or predominantly to blame for an incident, no penalty will be imposed. So I stand by what I said yesterday and what I said just a moment ago. 60% Verstappen, 40% Ricciardo, and I think it was right that they didn't hand out a penalty. They did both get reprimands though, and Red Bull have forced them to go back to Milton Keynes, to the factory, to apologise to all the staff. Let's go to something a bit more positive though and talk about driver of the day officially. He's my driver of the day as well, and I'm sure he's so many of yours, Charles Leclerc. So amidst all that chaos and his lack of experience, he kept it clean, he stayed out of trouble, he stayed calm and drove to a brilliant 6th place. Yes, absolutely he was lucky because of all those retirements and all those incidents. But to be fair to him and to Sauber as well, he looked quick all weekend to that point and totally deserved a points finish. He was quick in Q1, went to P11, he qualified 14th, started 13th after penalties of course, and drove on the pace of the top end of the midfield consistently through the Grand Prix. It was just great to see him. When you look at how he started the season, he's been scruffy, he's been scrappy, he's made so many mistakes. He himself saying that he knows he needs to calm down, and that's exactly what he's done this weekend, and his talent has shone through. Great result for him. Big points as well for Sauber, and that's their highest finish since the Russian Grand Prix in 2015. That was Felipe Nasr, I believe, who got that one. But where drivers such as Lewis Hamilton, Sergio Perez, possibly Carlos Sainz, maybe Charles Leclerc got lucky, Valtteri Bottas certainly did not. Do you know what? Before this weekend, I would have said that Nico Hülkenberg was one of the unluckiest drivers on the grid, and that kind of carried on in the race, of course, as we saw. He lost the back end and hit the wall, but right now, I feel as though Valtteri Bottas is the unluckiest guy on that grid. Without the safety car in China, without his puncture today, he is right up there, ahead of his teammate in the championship, in the title fight, and possibly, this early in the season, Mercedes' best crack at a title. Obviously, long way to go, and Lewis Hamilton inevitably will improve. There's no doubt about that. But right now, he's got a handle on that Mercedes and looks the quicker of the two. But a puncture cost him. Again, I want to clear something up from the live stream. We said yesterday the debris on track, the race shouldn't have been restarted. It was completely out of order. However, that debris has now been confirmed as coming from the incident involving Gasly and Magnussen on that final restart. So it wasn't there when the safety car came in. Yeah, okay, some people saying Bottas should have avoided that, but he's doing 200 miles an hour plus at that point. You know, and there's a big gap between the last car and Bottas coming round again because we just had a safety car. Somebody could have run and cleared that. They could have put the safety car back out again, or they could have warned teams and drivers that there was debris there. He's run over it, it's punctured his rear tyre and ended his Grand Prix, and he was in control at that point. Vettel had gone for the move and got it wrong. He had a flat spot. He wasn't going to come back. He got the jump at the restart, was pulling away from Hamilton. Absolutely gutted for the guy, and some of the images afterwards as well were almost heartbreaking to look at. But I've got to say, he handled it all so well, and even despite being devastated, he still managed to see past it and take positives from the performance and going forward. He's such a nice guy, a very good racing driver, and deserves to be right in this title fight, and I hope he can bounce back in Spain and start to show that he has got that necessary championship pedigree. There were a few other incidents throughout the race that I just want to touch on very, very quickly. The incident with Raikkonen and Ocon on the first lap, I completely agree with the steward's decision there. No further action. It's the first lap. Ocon could have left more space. Raikkonen didn't have to throw it up the inside. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Correct decision. Looking back, as I said earlier, at the Sirotkin and Perez moment, again, first lap, I think it's a little bit harsh to throw a penalty at him in some respects, but at the same time, he has just ploughed into the back of Perez. So you can kind of see it from the steward's perspective. The incident again with Sirotkin, Alonso, and I believe it was Hulkenberg. It was definitely one of the Renaults. There was no penalty handed out there. Again, right decision. That left Alonso, of course, with the double puncture. Got it back to the pits. Brilliant driving. I mentioned when going through the result, of course, that Kevin Magnussen and Gasly came together. Magnussen getting the penalty. Gasly describing the Dane as the most dangerous guy I've ever raced with. And went on to say, he literally put me in the wall at 300 kilometers an hour at the restart. So it sounds like a second absolutely terrifying moment for Gasly this weekend, following what happened in qualifying with his teammate. Magnussen also receiving 2 penalty points for the incident, meaning he's just 4 points away from a 1-race ban. So he has got to be careful now. And finally, on the race, Romain Grosjean had a bit of an embarrassing moment under the safety car. He lost control of the back end of his car and put it in the wall whilst warming his tyres. Really not good from him. A man definitely under pressure, particularly when you look at what his teammates done so far this year. And one thing to clear up with that one as well, Marcus Ericsson did not touch that Haas. He's nowhere near him. But the thing I want to clear up is that Romain Grosjean never made that claim. It was his race engineer over team radio that said he thought that Ericsson had hit him, not Grosjean. Before we look at the championship tables, I do just want to talk about something else. It's not race related as such, but it has been confirmed this morning that Red Bull and Honda have sat down for their first official talks about the possibility of the Japanese manufacturer supplying the Bulls next season. Both sides are pretty much going with the line that these are just preliminary discussions and that they've already got a great relationship with each other, but the talks have been labelled as positive, so watch this space. It looks as though this deal could very well happen. I don't think it would come as a huge surprise to any of us, to be fair. Let's have a look then at the Drivers' Championship. Lewis Hamilton moves to the top of the Drivers' Championship, 4 points clear of Sebastian Vettel. That is going to chop and change so much this year. I have no idea who is going to win this World Championship. Ferrari look to have the fastest car, but it's just going to be so close. Kimi Raikkonen in 3rd place. Valtteri Bottas in 4th with just 40 points, highlighting what I was saying earlier. He really should be right up there, if not topping the championship table. Daniel Ricciardo is 5th, 37 points on the board for him. Alonso in 6th, 28, with 6 more points today. Nico Hulkenberg didn't score, but stays 7th on 22. Max Verstappen still just 18 points. Would not have expected that at the start of the season, to be perfectly honest. Sergio Perez, big leap to 9th with his 15 points and his podium today. Carlos Sainz moves up to 10th on 13. We will have a look at the second half of the table this time round because only 2 drivers have yet to score, and that's Grosjean and Sirotkin, but Pierre Gasly stays in 11th. Kevin Magnussen in 12th. Charles Leclerc jumps to 13th on 8 points and is tied with Stoffel Van Dorn in his McLaren also on 8 points. Lance Stroll has 4, Marcus Ericsson 2, and Esteban Ocon and Brendan Hartley both have 1. The Constructors' Championship then, and Ferrari are 4 points clear at the top of that from Mercedes. They take the lead. Red Bull stay on 55 points. That already looks like a long way back for them. McLaren are really solid, 36 points, but only 1 clear of Renault in 5th. Force India have 16 now. They are 6th. Toro Rosso in 7th place. Haas have 11 points. It should be so much more courtesy of Grosjean's mistake today and also the issues in Australia. Have they already started to drop off? Sauber, as I said earlier, double figures for them. Fantastic. 10 points on the board. And Williams still bottom, but they have got 4 points, and that is all 10 teams scoring. So what did you think of the 2018 Azerbaijan Grand Prix then? Who do you blame for the Red Bull incident? I'm sure there's going to be so many differing opinions in the comments. And as we head off to Spain, who do you think is the title favourite? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, I will be back with John T tomorrow on SoundCloud and here on YouTube for the second episode of the F1 Word podcast. And just a heads up, it is definitely a different tone to what we usually go for, a little bit more somber as we look back and discuss our memories of Imola 1994. And as I say, that will be available on SoundCloud and on YouTube tomorrow lunchtime. In the meantime, though, you can follow me on social media. Links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and to Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.